Hello, and welcome to the Powder Room, where we discover the message within our messes. I am your host, Ivy Ashley. In today's episode titled Your Balance Blueprint Part 2, we'll continue our discussion with the last pillar of balance and provide you with some tips on how you can reclaim your balance. How are you doing out there today? Y'all, listen, I am on 10. I don't know if you can tell, but I am trying to calm down, but I just cannot. I just came from an amazing church service today, and that word is still resonating in my spirit. The title of the message was You Have to Read It Until You See It. And I tell you what, the premise of the message was simple as this. You know, sometimes we have all this craziness going on in our lives, and what's going on looks absolutely nothing like, the things that we've prayed for, the things that we sought God for. I mean, it don't look anything like that. But in those times, we have to rely on the word of God in order for us to have the peace, to have the joy, to have the encouragement that we need until those things are manifested in our lives. And I tell you, it has put a fire in me to read God's word more. You can never read God's word enough, but I know I need to read more because I am not where I should be or where I desire to be. And if you are intrigued just by that small snippet that I shared with you today, head on over to Sister YouTube, search for Link Church Charlotte, look for the message on June 29th, and I promise you will not be disappointed. All right, so let's talk about balance. So on last week, we started talking about balance and we defined it as alignment, wholeness, and awareness. And I gave a very amazing example of what it means to be out of alignment. We also talked about the first 5 pillars of balance, which are physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and financial. So if you have not listened to episode 19, please pause, go back and listen to all that knowledge and wisdom that I shared so you will be up to speed and on the same page. And I promise we will be here when you come back, okay? So today we are going to focus on the last pillar of balance, which is relational balance. And I felt like this one deserved its own episode because there are just so many types of relationships that we have. And so I want to kind of break down each one, some a little bit more than others. And let's see where it takes us. All right. So relational balance is defined as the ability to maintain healthy, fulfilling, and mutual respectful relationships across all areas of life. And it does not matter what type of relationship it is, whether it's romantic, platonic, familial, or professional, those relationships should be healthy. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Those relationships should be healthy. I don't know where we went wrong or when we started to accept toxicity as normal, but it is not normal. Being in a toxic relationship and accepting toxic behavior is not normal. So if that's what you're in, that's clue number one that that's why you're out of balance. Okay. So, relational balance is having a healthy, fulfilling, and mutual respectful relationship. What are some signs that you could be relationally off balance? So, feeling emotionally drained, people pleasing, boundary violations. People just don't care about the boundaries that you set up. You put a line in the sand, they go ahead and step on it. Baddest man hit my hand, they hit you across the face. I mean, people just don't care anything about your boundaries. And if that is the case in any relationships that you have, it's time for you to reassess those relationships. One more sign is that if there is constant conflict, but let me be clear, not all conflict is bad. Conflict can just mean that there is a difference of opinion. But if there is always conflict and no resolution, that is an issue. Okay? So, as we walk through these various types of relationships, I want you to consider two things as you think about the different types of relationships that you are involved in. I want you, number one, to be aware of leeches. Be aware of anybody in your life who sucks the very life out of you and leave you feeling depleted. Some of y'all just thought of somebody right then when I said that. It probably is time for you to let that relationship go. So beware of leeches. And then the second one, second thing I want you to think about is beware of some relationships where you may be taken for granted. Listen, we putting on our big girl panties and big boy boxers today. Sometimes we hold on to certain relationships because of comfort and not because they are mutually beneficial. We're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. So, the first type of relationship I want to get into is the romantic relationship. And this one is probably the most popular and the one that, we talk about the most and the one that we kind of center our lives around the most because, who you spend the rest of your life with is important and it is not strategic, but it is, well, it could be or should be strategic about who you choose to spend your life with. But it is so important, guys, that we know when love feels like support versus when it feels like survival. Ooh, let me read that again. Knowing when love feels like support versus when it feels like survival. I mean, Lord, struggle love is not healthy love, guys. It is toxic passion out of control. And we already said in earlier episodes that we're not doing struggle love anymore. Let me say that again. Struggle love is not healthy love. It is toxic passion out of control. So you should not accept that in your life as normal. You know, the thing that I believe has held me from being married at this point, outside of, God's timing, because I believe that if I really wanted to be married, I could have been. But even though I had not experienced, real love in my life, even though I didn't see it really growing up outside of my grandparents and maybe a couple other relationships, but I'm just talking about growing up with an example in my life because I had so many examples of what love was not. I knew what I didn't want. I knew, even in my low self esteem days, that I deserved better than that. And so if it meant me staying single and the only other alternative was for me to accept anything and everybody, um, give me single for 1,000, Alex. Because I have seen a whole lot of things in my life. I have witnessed a whole lot of things in my life. And I believe wisdom tells you that you don't have to necessarily experience everything to learn something. Listen to me. Oh, that was good. Let me say that again. You do not have to experience everything to learn something. That is what wisdom tells you. And so I have taken knowledge from, my friend's marriage, my cousin's marriage, my sister's marriage. I've taken snippets of what I've seen from everybody's relationship, not even, being involved per se, but from an outside looking in. I've taken nuggets from what people have shared with me over the years. And, of course, going to God in prayer about some things, laid up on somebody's couch and talked about some other things. But it has really given me wisdom as it relates to marriage and romantic relationships. And I am 100% sure and confident that when I get married, my husband will get the very best of me. Because right now, Ivy can present her best self. She can present her healed self. She can present her knowledgeable self. She can present her I don't play them kind of games self. And that is super, super, super important. Let me get back because I done went way in left field somewhere. So I don't know who needed it, but that was some good stuff I just shared, and I hope y'all caught it. All right. So in romantic relationships, we have to be careful that we balance individuality and partnership. You don't want to be so individual that you try to be independent, but at the same time, you don't want to be so booed up till you forget about yourself as an individual. There is definitely a balance, and you never want to lose yourself in somebody else. It is so important that we heal any attachment wounds that we may have so that we can create secure bonds with people. We want to make sure. And I know we'll always have something, but I believe that there are certain things, especially from our past, that we should work out before we bring anybody in our lives to try to have a future with them. That's just wisdom speaking. We should have no expectation for a future spouse or mate to help heal us. One of my most favorite sayings is, my healing is my responsibility, nobody else's. Handle that with you, your therapist, and your God. Amen. Lights and walls. So that is romantic relationships. The next ship we need to deal with is friendships. And with friendships, man, have my idea of friendships evolved over time. So when you talk about friendships, you want to evaluate reciprocity. Are your friendships mutually nourishing or are they one sided? Again, are your friendships mutually nourishing or are they one sided? And I can tell you that there have been a few times in my life where, I've been the only one I felt that was pouring into some of my friendships, keeping them afloat. If I'm the only one calling you, if I'm the only one saying, "Hey, what you doing? Let's go out. Let's do this." If I'm the only one checking on you, if I'm the only one, you call when you have a need, or you only call when you have a need, that's a problem. So if you have a relationship like that, a friendship like that in your life, it may be time to evaluate the reciprocity because it sounds like that is one-sided because you're the only one pouring out and you are never being poured into, and eventually you're going to be depleted. Eventually you are going to be depleted. And I'm going to tell you, when you get to the point where you realize that certain friendships are coming to an end or have ran their course, there is a quiet grief of outgrowing some friendships. I have definitely witnessed that people that you thought would be in your life forever, and for whatever reason, the relationship just, died. There is a grief with, no longer having that relationship. Because I've been friends with people 10, 20 years, and then, for whatever reason, we just parted ways. And not necessarily, nothing tragic or, bad happened. But again, the relationship just played out and was done with. And there was, no reason for us to move forward. When you've had somebody in your life for 20 years, you just don't get over that in 2 weeks. So there's a grief period that goes along with that. So when you have friends, and, I don't call everybody my friend. I only have a select few. Everybody else, is an acquaintance. I know a whole lot of people, but not everybody I know, I call my friend. I can really say that my real friends, I don't know why people or why we do that. We say put real friends or the word real in front of friends because either you're my friend or you're not. But anyway, I have a, constant or consistent, I won't say constant, but consistent communication with those people in my life that I call my friend. If I can go a whole year without communicating with you, I have a problem with that. If we're only talking when I reach out to you, I have a problem with that. And that's why certain people, I stop texting. I stop, "Hey, just checking on you. Hey, what's up? Hadn't heard from you in a while." I'm not doing that anymore unless God tells me otherwise. So God tells me to check on somebody, I'm definitely going to check on somebody. If sometimes you're, going throughout your day and a person, will drop in my spirit, I will reach out to them because 9 times out of 10, it's for a reason, and it may be a ministry moment. So I will be obedient to that regard, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be friends in order for me to do that. Also, it's important to set boundaries with your friends without guilt. So, in actually all of these relationships, boundaries are important. You have to figure out what your boundaries are and don't be afraid to implement them. Okay. Sometimes we will find that adult friendships do shift over time. And because they shift over time, we have to be very intentional in maintaining them and keeping them up. And that's if, the relationship is going to sustain the test of time. I went through a period, and I know I can say this with, I would say, my friendships, my two best friends who were in the Mother's Day episode with me. We've all had periods in our life where we didn't talk or see each other, that much. As of, I guess I'm about to date myself now, but I think from, I would say, 1999 to now, I have not lived in the same city as my best friends. And so, the distance alone, can be an issue. Aside from that, they were, married women raising children who don't have time to be sitting up on the phone talking all the time. And I totally, understood that. So, there are certain seasons in friendships that, the communication may be, not as much as you would like, but if the friendship is real, if the love is real, no time or distance is going to, come in between that. And I know that both of those relationships, in my life have proven that to be the fact. Because anytime I come home, I know I'm going to see Keisha, or, I'm actually in a few weeks going to visit, Katrina and her kids in Orlando. So, you make time, for the people that are important to you. But, that relationship again, you still have to set boundaries, you still have to set your expectations and all of that in order for the relationship to flourish. Is super, super important. Okay. So the next one we're going to talk about today is family relationships. And man, this can be a whole thing by itself, but I'm only going to, talk about a few areas with family. So, first of all, the first challenge is navigating family roles and expectations as an adult. Because for me, you know, I have, I divide my family into two sections. And so, and this is me as, a single woman. So I have my immediate family, and then I have everybody else. So my immediate family would include like my mom, my dad, and my siblings. And then, all my other family will go into all others. Um, my mom and my dad are no longer with me, so really it's, my siblings, my niece's nephew, my grandparents are no longer with me as well. So my immediate family could also include them. So mom, dad, siblings, niece, nephew, and grandparents, and then all others. If you are married, your immediate family could be your husband, wife, children, parents, and possibly grandparents, siblings, and then all other like aunts, uncles, cousins, godparents, all of those other individuals. And it's hard, as an adult to navigate your role in your family, what others expect of you versus what you are willing to give, because that does change over time as your role as an adult changes. So my relationship with my sister may be one thing as I am a single woman, but as I transition to being married, I may not be able to be to her what I could be as a single woman because I have added responsibilities. And I've always, kind of seen it that way, because both of my siblings are married or have been married, and they also have children. So may have been times where they could not be there for me as I desired because they had these other responsibilities. And I totally get it. I totally understand it. But one thing we can't do, we can't be so engulfed in our roles in one area until we forget about the relationships that we have with other people. Because what I've seen happen, is you didn't have time for me when these good things were happening. But now that you need some money, you know my phone number. Uh-uh. Now that you need me for something, you can find me. So we really have to find a balance of how we can still be, what each other needs. Um, and at the same time, not overwhelming ourselves and depleting ourselves trying to please everybody. So that is where that balance comes in. That is where those boundaries come in and say, hey, I may not can do this, but I can definitely do this. So we have to be adults and have conversations and not be scared to have confrontations when we need to have confrontations. And confrontation does not have to be negative. It just means that I am in my adult era and I am having conversations. And I don't know why we have become so super sensitive that we can't correct people that we say we love without oppositions. I don't understand that. Now, listen, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, if you're going to tell me about my black behind, I may not like it. More than likely, I'm not going to like it, especially if it's true. But if I know that you are coming to me in love, and I know that you have no ill will towards me, why do I have a problem with you correcting me? I don't get it. And it's okay. You don't have to like it. But if you are coming to me in love, be like, girl, listen, I don't like what you're saying, but I know I need to hear it. I don't want anybody in my life who is scared to tell me when I'm doing something when I'm doing something wrong. I can tell you right now that my friend Katrina, she's like, girl, that ain't right. She has her way. I need people like that in my life. I need for my sister to tell me when she doesn't like how I say certain things to her. Listen, Your tone is a boundary for me. I don't accept that. So we can maintain our connections with our families without sacrificing our peace. Those boundaries apply to your family too, because just because we're blood related does not mean you can treat me any type of way, and it does not mean you can talk to me any kind of way. And I reserve the right to tell you that you're not going to talk to me that way. Listen, just because we family, I don't have to put up with your stuff. I remember a long, 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 long time ago. And I hope my niece, I love you, Terica. I hope she don't get mad, but she loves me, so she know this is coming from a good place. But I remember when we went to New York, it was me, my niece, and my sister. We went to New York for like an extended weekend to see The Color Purple on Broadway. Long story short, we had went out for the day and something happened, and I believe we didn't do something, that Terica wanted to do, and she copped the biggest attitude. Oh my God. She copped the biggest attitude, and she was just wasn't doing us. And so when we finally got home or got back to the hotel for the night, she still wasn't halfway speaking to me or her mom. And so she came to get in the bed with me, y'all. And I said, I don't want that old nasty attitude sleeping with me. Going over there with your mama because I don't have to put up with it. And she went and got in the bed with her mama. Child, when we woke up the next morning, she had left the both of us in bed. She was hot with both of us. But eventually, she, got all right. And I think later on that day when we had a matinee showing of The Color Purple, and we went to the matinee, and I think my sister was sitting on one side of me and she was sitting on the other side of me, and she kind of looped her arm around my arm, and that was her way of saying that she was sorry. And I was like, the girl. It's funny now, but I was mad back then and she was mad too. But listen, there is nothing, and I'm about to call her little girl, but that's my daughter niece, y'all. Anybody who know me, y'all know how I feel about my Terica Janoy. It ain't nothing that a young woman can ask me that I wouldn't do for her. So even in our most uncomfortable moments, or when we, weren't getting along to the best, she knows that anything that I'll tell her that she may not want to hear is coming out of love. So while she may not like it at the moment, she gonna get over it eventually, because she don't play about her auntie either. Let's make that clear. Okay. So all of that to say is that it's okay to have boundaries with your family. It's okay to be able to correct each other in love now. Again, we have to watch, our tones. We have to watch how we speak to people. We have to watch any ulterior motives that we may have. But listen, if you're my family, I should be able to come to you and tell you, hey, you were wrong there. Hey, you need to restore that relationship. Hey, if I can't tell you that and you don't receive it and respond accordingly, there is something wrong with that. Woe to anybody who thinks that they are too good to be corrected, because I don't want you in my life anyway. Whether you family, friend, I don't care, because none of us are above and beyond sin or being wrong. Okay? But even in correction, even in not accepting bad behavior and being treated any type of way, we have to extend grace. We have to extend grace, not at the expense of your peace, though, but you still have to extend grace to your family while still honoring your own emotional truth and emotional and mental health. You have to extend it because I've seen people who are more cordial with their friends than they are with their family. And I understand, some friends are like family, but still, you have to do what's right. Okay, so that's family relationships. And I could have gone in several more directions talking about that. But those are just some of the things that I thought about when I think about keeping balance, in my family relationships. And it's a give and take. So if you have some family relationships that you're always pouring into, always encouraging, always giving, some people you have to love from a distance and it's okay. There's no ill will. I'm not mad at you or anything like that. When I see you, we still gonna laugh, talk about the good times, talk about the past, dap it up, whatever we gotta do, hug, eat some crabs. That's blue crabs, not snow crabs or dungeon. This is blue crabs. Um, we still can do all that, but I can love you from a distance if I need to. All right. So that's family relationships. So the next relationship we want to talk about is the business and professional relationship. And I tell you, this could be a whole podcast episode by itself because we spend more time with the people at work probably than a lot of the relationships, we have in our lives because, that's 40 plus hours for most of us. So your job, your career, your workplace is the last place you want to go and have to put up with contention and not having balance, every day in and day out. So, what are some signs that your workplace relationships could be out of balance? Let's see: increased stress, anxiety, depression, you could have some physical symptoms like headaches, fatigue, insomnia. You dread going to work. And every time you think about work, you get a headache, or every time you're in a meeting, you get a headache. It could also have an impact to your self-esteem. You could be irritable with people not at work, meaning your family and your friends. So they catching it at the house because you catching it at work. And you can also become less sociable because you have less energy to do everything because them people you deal with Monday through Friday then worked on your last nerve and you have nothing left to give. And I think some of us put up with more at work than we do any other place or put up with the people at work than we do with any of our other relationships because, that is where we get our money to be able to sustain us, to live, to buy food, clothes, and shelter. But please consider this: any job that you have, it is a resource, but it should never be your source. God should always be your source because if something happens to that job, God can provide you with another one. So never see your job as your source. See it as a resource. And where there is one resource, there are a multitude of resources. So please keep that in mind. I know one of the main areas that I have had to deal with in relationships is at work as it relates to leaders, those who were managing me or who I reported to. So sometimes you have to deal with managing power dynamics. And for me, I am the type of employee that once you give me instructions or what to do, or if you give me a task, then I need for you to release it and trust me to do it. Now, if I have any questions or concerns, I need to know that the door is open to be able to come to you with whatever I need to as my manager, but I don't need you hovering over me and asking me every 30 minutes when it's going to be done. And I have had really only one instance with a micromanager, and she, oh my God, I can think of several, examples of things that she would do. I mean, she talked down, to us as her employees. We were like the lowest man on the totem pole. I remember one day I was doing a presentation and she came in the room, and it was like probably about four or five of us in this session, and she was listening in from her office, and I was doing the presentation. She came out of her office into the room that we were in, put the phone on mute, and fussed at me for being on the wrong slide. PowerPoint slide, y'all. And I was trying to explain to her that I was leading into the next slide. Listen, at that point, I had 10, 15 years of training experience. I know how to present. So I didn't need you trying to come in and micromanage how I was doing my presentation, but she did it. Had them folk on hold for 2 or 3 minutes fussing with me about being on the wrong PowerPoint slide. And so that was the type of environment I was in several years ago. And I prayed and I said, Lord, now listen, you ain't telling me to leave this job, but one or two things gonna have to happen before I crack. Because I'm one of those people, it takes a lot to get to me, but once I get to that point, everybody gonna get it. So, so I was like, Lord, either you gonna have to move her or you gonna have to move me, because this is not going to work. And I tell you, the prayers of the righteous avail much, because not too long, I think it was probably within a year, that she got fired. Yes, she got fired because of how she was treating us. And so you really have to be wise in how you approach, certain things. And many times things happen to us with our relationships at work in order to teach us a lesson. For me, that lesson was sometimes you have to hold your peace and let God fight your battles instead of taking matters into your own hands. Another thing with workplace dynamics and workplace relationships is it's important for us to be able to collaborate without compromising our values or creative vision. And there is always a way to get your point across and get, your thoughts heard without being mean and without being, confrontational or combative. There's always a way to do that. And anytime I'm having to collaborate with someone, it's important for me to always hear everybody who's involved. So I may take a back seat initially, kind of survey the lay of the land, if you will, and see where everybody else is coming from. And then, I'll put my 2, 3 cents in and bring and take the best parts of what everybody has to offer, because I believe that, everybody has something. Everybody, comes to the table with something, or they wouldn't be at the job in the first place. Also, workplace conduct. It is so important that we watch how we conduct ourselves because people are always watching whether you think they are or not. And it's not always the people that you think that are watching you that are really watching you. Trust me, your reputation precedes you, whether it's a positive reputation or whether it's a negative reputation. Listen, trust me, your reputation does precede you. And your reputation will impact your relational health, which will then impact how you are able to network, how you're able to grow, and how many opportunities come your way based on your reputation. So if you're known as being late, if you're known as, turning in work or producing something that's, not up to par, that's going to be talked about just as well as somebody who is always on their game. So when it comes to your name coming up in rooms that you're not even in, it can come up for a good reason, but it can also come in for a bad reason. So please make sure to watch how you conduct yourself at work because that will also determine whether people want to be around you. If you're known as somebody who's always negative, who's always complaining, who always got something to say, don't like anything, but don't never have any resolution to any problem that you bring, people are not going to want to deal with that. Okay? So if you want to grow, if you want to do more than you're doing right now, listen, the product you receive is the difference between whether you have a job or whether at some point you can enter into a career. And that is 25 years plus of corporate experience talking. So I think in season two, I'm probably going to do some episodes as it relates to career and the things that I've learned from corporate America because I think it's really, really necessary for us to be able to, you know, conduct ourselves the way that we should and position ourselves. That's the better word, that we position ourselves to be in the places that we want to be in or where we want to get to as it relates to our careers and our positions and how we develop and how we nurture our business and professional relationships as well. All right. So just some general things since that was the last relationship um topic I wanted to talk about as it relates to overall relational balance. That was the last pillar that I needed to go over with you today. So now I just want to just give you some general things to reflect upon as it relates to balance on a whole. Number one, the power of no. Saying it without explanation or apology. Listen, no is a complete sentence, and I will never say that enough. Sometimes we don't have balance in these areas because we're trying to be all things to all people and we just do not have the capacity to do so. So sometimes you need to say no and you have permission to do just that. You don't have to answer or why can't you do it or what you got going on. That's none of your business. I'm telling you no. And nothing else at that point needs to be said. All right. Let's normalize balancing giving and receiving in all of our relationships. Any relationship that you're doing, giving, giving, giving all the time is not balanced. And any relationship that you're doing all the receiving is not balanced. So this is the time where you want to, look at, physical balance, emotional, mental balance, spiritual balance, financial balance, and relational balance, and just see, where are you giving and where are you receiving? Look into all of your relationships and be able to analyze that and see what you come up with. So, what are some things that can throw us off balance? Simply said, life happening. Listen, being overworked, dealing with grief, having, very close people to you, passing away or getting gravely ill, aging. Aging can, mess with your head, whether it's personal aging or your parents aging, children going from, teenagers to adults, caregiving. If you've ever had to be a caregiver to someone that you love, if that don't throw you off balance, and it can impact you, financially, send your emotions and your mental state all over the place. It can affect your physical being. Either you stop eating or you're eating too much. I mean, it can really impact you, especially if you're the sole caregiver or you're getting minimal help from other people. It can really, really take you off of your center. And many of these things that throws us off balance are elements that we have absolutely no control over. The only thing we can control is how we respond. We like to try to be everything to everybody, but as long as we are in these earthly bodies, there is just so much that we can do. So you really have to be able to minimize the disruption. And I know that is easier said than done, but every day, it's like, how do you eat a whole elephant? You take it a little bit at a time. You don't try to eat the whole thing, in one setting. And as I stated before, anytime that we're imbalanced, it will show up in our moods. It will show up in, disconnecting from people that we love, procrastinating, not having any energy to do anything, go anywhere, being tired all the time, not being able to get ample rest. And when you try to go to sleep, you spend 2 hours staring at the wall, feelings of incompleteness, feelings of emptiness. All of this will show up, and eventually it will show up in your body. If you're dealing with stress and depression, that will show up in your body, especially if that turns into not eating correctly. You don't want imbalance showing up as illness. So it's very, very, very important that we address this head on and reclaim our balance. So, how do we reclaim our center? What do we need to do to keep our cars from shaking? Remember in the last week's episode, we talked about, cars being out of alignment and all the different things that happens when our cars are not in alignment. And the same thing happens, when we find ourselves out of balance. A shakeup happens. So strategies for realignment. And I think this is or should be priority is to create sacred pauses in our day. Take time out to smell the roses. And for me, my spiritual balance is primary, because if I focus on ensuring that my spirit man is right, if I focus on my spirit man being connected to God, if I focus on my spirit man reading the word of God and getting fed on a consistent basis, if I focus on my spirit man being communicating with God and praying consistently, then all those other pillars in my life will fall into place. Because, see, when my spirit man is connected and in alignment, you know, he will tell me that I need to physically be disciplined. So I can start working on those areas physically where I need to work on my health. If I need to turn my plate down, if I need to go work out, if I need to go get a massage, if I need to go see my therapist for my mental and my emotional balance, if I need to see a financial planner for my financial balance, if I need to stop spending credit cards and focus on paying them off for my financial balance, if I need to watch how I talk to people and give more grace to my family for my relational balance. So for me, it all starts with ensuring that my spirit man is right. Then all those other areas in my life, I can get instructions on how I need to balance them. That means that I need to rebuild my rituals, do, my morning prayer and meditation, make sure I'm, exhibiting gratitude, make sure that I'm doing my morning check-ins with people that I love. So we can't get so busy until we forget the small things that really become the big things. And we're talking about how to reclaim our center, how to ensure that we stay on balance, stay balanced. Also, audit your circles. Every circle that you're in, audit it. And these are some questions you need to ask as it relates to people who are in your circle. Who is in my life that pours into me? Who only pulls from me? Which relationships bring me peace? Which relationships bring me stress? Where do I need to enforce, reassess, or establish boundaries? We're auditing our circles. We're talking about balance now. There is no relationship in your life that should be at the expense of your balance. So audit your circles, and I promise you won't regret it. Just saying that out loud, I realized that there's some circles in my life, some people in my life that I need to audit out of my life. Listen, my phone don't really ring that much anyway, but it's going to start ringing a whole lot less. I'm telling you, there is nothing, nobody that I would give up my peace for. I worked way too hard, and you have worked way too hard to get healed, to get delivered, to get set free, to get trauma free, to get toxicity free, to let one relationship interrupt what it took you 10 years to get healed from. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You are important and you are enough. It's okay to put yourself first sometimes. Somebody needs to hear that. It is okay to put yourself first sometimes. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the 20th episode and the first season of the Powder Room podcast. Yes, we did it, guys. We made it. Thank you so much for journeying with me through this very first season. I encourage you to please revisit these 2 episodes anytime you feel scattered or off balance. This information will be accessible to you. And not only that, please stay connected during the season break. I am spending some time working on marketing, working on improving some things, going back and kind of see, what I did for this first season and make some improvements. I don't know why I can't talk today, y'all. Goodness. But so I ask you to, in addition to these episodes on balance, revisit some of the other podcasts and share them with at least 20 people. I know you know 20 people. You work with 20 people. So share this podcast with at least 20 people. And if you don't know 20 people, as many people as you know, how about that? Send them a text message with the link already in it. So all they have to do is click on the link. Stay connected with me through the summer. I'll still be making posts on my Instagram, thepowderroom.pod, and also on Facebook, which I need to get so much better in posting on Facebook at the Powder Room Podcast. I promise that we will be coming back for season 2 like we never left. I promise. So look for us sometime mid-August, and I will start probably doing some advertisements a couple weeks before the broadcast comes back. But until then, thank you so much for joining us in the Powder Room on today, where it is our mission to always discover the message within our messes. Take care. Love you guys. See you in August.